Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Toy Geek Maniac. My name is Chad Miller, and this is going to be an exciting year for toys, especially since Marvel Comics is celebrating 80 years, and there's a whole slew of interesting and fun toys that are going to be coming our way. And one of the most interesting series I find thus far is the retro Uncanny X-Men figures. In the early 1990s, Toy Biz unleashed its first wave of Uncanny X-Men figures, and they were pretty awesome for the time. And one of those figures happened to be of Storm. Now, female figures at that time were pretty rare. Like, you hardly ever got a female character in almost any line. And if you found a female, it was pretty rare too because they were usually only packed like one in a box. So your chances of getting the actual female character, it was one out of say 16 or something like that. So the initial Storm figure was very clunky looking. Let's go ahead and take a look. Now, Storm had the black outfit, and she also had like this lightning spear, and then there was the light up lightning bolt that was across her chest. One of the few interesting things about this figure was that she sported long hair, which was something that toy manufacturers had a hard time doing. However, with this figure, there was limited posability because of the hair. You could bend her at the elbows and obviously at the knees. And she was a little bit top heavy, so it was kind of hard for her to stand. The figure that I had, actually, her head popped off really easy. And because of the back of her head, she had the light switch that came through the back of her hair. And to really press that, you had to kind of like really dig into it. So her head had popped off, and multiple applications of glue just had to do what it had to do. Now, there were a couple of variants of this figure eventually down the road. They eventually released a gray version, which matched a little bit more closer to the outfit she wore in the comics at the time, and included this rinky dink like plastic ring that was supposed to double for was her cape that extended from her back and attached at the wrists. And eventually, somewhere down the line, because of the popularity of the animated series, they released a white version of her outfits that still also came with a rinky plastic cape that was a little bit better than the one before, but not by very much. So that brings us to 2019 and the the Marvel Legends relaunch of this series of X-Men figures. Now, I honestly did not expect to find these in the stores. I was like super shocked when I went into my local Walmart, and I go down the toy aisle every time I'm there just to see what shows up. And in fact, recently I just purchased Gambit, which will be featured, and so I came across this series, and there was only one Storm available, and here she is. Now, the package is pretty damaged, and I was kind of hoping that I would at least be able to keep one in the package. If I find another one, I just might, but this one is going to get opened just because the packaging is so warped and damaged. But, much like the original line, it has this nice little, like, orange and gold card, and the figure is displayed with the actual, like, logo. And the figure looks great. Obviously, Marvel Legends are a 6-inch scale, whereas the older ones were like 5. So this is a bigger figure, good box art, and on the back you have a list of all the figures in this line. And it's kind of interesting because, well, Storm, this version of Wolverine, Iceman, Cyclops, and Silver Samurai were all part of that original line of toys. This Dazzler was not. Now they had two Dazzlers there, but I was kind of like, I as a bit of a purist, I want to say that because she wasn't an actual part of the original line, it's just like an additional figure, and I was like, okay, nah, I really don't need her. And they had two of her available, and so, but now I'm sitting there thinking, man, I would just love to have the figure. So if I happen to find another Dazzler, I'll get her. Plus, money was kind of tight that day, and Storm was obviously very important. So, so as it stands, I'm going to go ahead and open her up, and we'll see what she looks like. Okay, so the first super exciting thing that I love about this figure is the fact that her lightning effects are. Oh, and it kind of wraps. So that's really cool too. So here are lightning effects that you can attach to her hands. Get a good focus here. And this is like a very malleable sort of application. A lot of the hand attachments or power effects are a little bit more solid than this, but I think because of the fact that they do go over her hands, there's no set like mold for them to attach. You can just wrap it around, and that actually looks pretty darn awesome. So onto the figure itself. Oh yeah, this is cool. Okay. All right. So the attention to detail is amazing on this, and what I really almost nailed it on the back. In the comics, the back of the cape kind of came out to like a triangle at the base, but I'm definitely very forgiving of that just because the hair sculpt is amazing. And you get to see the details of her Thunderbolt earrings, which was a touch to her comics version as well as the animated series. As I said, the attention to detail is amazing. The gathering of the uniform up here where it's not tight is awesome. And the cape is not like a chintzy fabric. It's or chintzy plastic. It's kind of like a, oh, I don't even know what to call it. It's plastic, but it's not like cheap. It's got a very fabric-like feel and could obviously move very well. And it's got the adorned outline of the yellow, which was very important to the look of this character. And it moves pretty well, so that way, I think if you were to get creative in your displays and you had some wind effect, it would certainly blow in the wind, which would be really awesome. And yeah, the hair sculpt is amazing. The head moves really nicely. The only thing I think I would change a little bit about is the coloring on the hair, just because there's so much like grayish kind of depth added to it, which is fine. It just makes it look like she has gray hair and not white hair. But an absolute white head might wash everything out, make it look too cartoony, which would be great if this were to be a figure for the animated series. Which you could use her for if you really wanted to. I know that there's other figures coming up that are loosely based on the animated series, which this would be a great fit for. So now I'm going to attach some of the lightning effects here. Which, oh my gosh, look at that. That is just so cool. And these attach really nicely. And for the fact that, lightning isn't, a predisposed kind of position, you could just flare it out. Ooh, hey, well, that's interesting. Okay, so the shoulder discs do come detached, but not... Okay, so they just snap back in place. They do have a little bit of mobility, as you can see right here. But apparently you can't extend her arms out too much forward without those popping off. And you could really, honestly, take this and really drape it up her arm if you wanted to get, like an uber super powerful moment from her. That would be so cool. Okay, alright, so I'm going to get her standing and we'll get a look at her a little bit more up close. So in a basic pose, she actually stands pretty well, and I was worried about her being a little too top heavy because of the hair sculpt, but even with some additional lighting, the hair actually looks better than previously mentioned. I am so incredibly happy with this figure. This is astoundingly beautiful. I was trying to get her into an extreme pose here, and here is a flaw. The chest cavity opens up, so you can't get too extreme with that pose, so we're going to have to lay that back a little bit, which is fine because she probably wouldn't be able to stand in that position anyways. But oh man, look how graceful she is. I love it. And it really captures the majesty of the character. She is beautiful and regal, and I probably would have to say this is the best Storm figure I have ever had. So I just unfortunately found out that the cape is removable, and it's kind of a pain in the ass to get back on. With the head tilted forward a little bit like that, I love that the command of energy that it just exudes. This is such a great figure. The whole cape detaching thing is not really all that attractive, but considering that it isn't a play toy, it's a display toy. It's suiting its purpose very well. So to give this a star rating of 0 to 10 stars, I am definitely giving Storm an 8. This is a remarkably done figure. I love the representation and the justice done to the character in this figure. Thank you so much for watching this introductory episode of Toy Geek Maniac, and stay tuned for future episodes. And as always, love and light to you all.